Hello everybody, this is Manu S and welcome to another artifact video here on my channel. Today I want to talk to you guys about how to draft artifact once it's out. We finally have information how draft works in artifact thanks to a couple of sources like Stan Sivka tweeted about it, and there were some interviews with Joel Larson and Stan Sivka where they talked in depth about draft and how it works. So let's take a look. I gathered all the info and broke it down for you. So first off, draft in Artifact is going to be asynchronous, but with real people, similar to Eternal. So basically, you just get past picks that other people at some point in time have drafted and picked cards from. Currently in the beta, they are still using AI picks instead of human picks, but long term they will use packs that humans picked from, unless there are, for whatever reason, because there's not enough data yet, not enough picks from humans, they will supplement it with AI picked boosters. A draft consists of 5 packs per player, so a bit more than we're used to, especially given that the packs are still 12 cards like in Eternal. Then which is also unusual, you get to pick 2 cards per pack. So you're gonna pick 6 times per pack cycle, 2 cards each time. Packs consist of 1 hero, 2 items, and 9 other cards. As I don't think there's any definitive information if packs are generally structured like that or only for draft, or as it's called in Artifact Gauntlet, but I could totally see this being a general structure for packs, but we'll have to wait and see whether or not packs are just 12 random cards or 1 hero, 2 items, and 9 other cards. You can only pick 1 hero per pack cycle, 5 total. That's gonna lead to some interesting decision making, because that means you will have to evaluate the likelihood of a hero showing up relative to its power level and relative to the power level of other heroes. So if you pick a 2-weak hero too early, that might cost your quality by not getting to pick a better hero later. So you want to be careful which heroes you pick when, because they lock you out from picking any other hero for that pack cycle. That's already a pretty interesting skill thing that makes draft more deep and more complicated, because you can mess up a lot by picking the wrong heroes too early and then losing out on hero quality during that pack cycle. You can pick and play more than 1 copy of a non-basic hero, unlike in Constructed where you can only play each hero once. In Gauntlet, if you get to pick a hero more than once, you can play them more than once, so you can end up with 2 or 3 of the same hero in one deck if you want to. You can even go as far as trying to draft strategies around a specific hero and their signature card, because if you play a hero 2 or 3 times, you're going to end up with 6 or 9 of their signature card in your deck and not just 3. So if there is a specific signature card or a specific hero or a combination of both that might lead to a dedicated strategy around these cards, you can try and aggressively draft multiple copies of those, especially if it's a hero that is generally otherwise not that good and goes late in draft and is easy to pick up. So that can be really interesting. You can even try and, I don't know, draft strategies with 4 or 5 copies of the same hero that is being picked late in a draft, if there's something unique to the hero that you can try and build around and stuff like that. It's not that likely that that might happen and so on, but it's definitely something to think about when going to draft Artifact. I think it can be really cool to look at heroes in from that perspective when picking them, because some heroes that might not be appealing normally could become pretty interesting and much better in that regard if you try and craft a whole strategy around them and having multiple copies of them. having up to 15 copies of a signature card in a deck can make your deck super consistent and yeah, change the whole the way your deck plays drastically, because you draw 2 cards a turn, so you're gonna see multiple copies of your signature, a hero signature card in a game and so on. So this is definitely interesting how it changes potential evaluation of weaker heroes and so on. So curious how that's gonna pan out, and how also curious how people in the beta may have experimented with it. Maybe it's just not a thing because the lower picked heroes are just too bad, but it's kind of like a similar thing to these cards in Magic Draft, where you have a card that is not very good, but gets really good if you get a bunch of copies, and it could work out with some heroes in Artifact like that too. Maybe not heroes that yet exist, but maybe heroes that will exist in the future, so it's always something to keep in mind, and pretty cool. In addition, you have access to a single copy of each basic hero, so you can always play basic heroes of the heroes you picked, which also means you don't have to pick 5 heroes. You can only pick heroes that are worth picking, and don't need to scramble for heroes and pick a bad hero over a good card, because if the hero isn't better than a basic hero, you can just pick a regular card and play a basic hero. You also get access to all the basic items, I think up to 3 copies, because I would assume the 3 card limit applies to items in your item deck as well. Also because there was a tweet by Stan Sivka where he said you should start your constructed item deck with 3 copies of one cheap item and 3 copies of another cheap item for your limited deck. There was a plus health item, which makes me assume that he meant the maximum copy, a maximum amount of copies, but I'm not 100% sure, but that would be my guess. And then in the end, you put it all together, you build a deck of 40 cards, 5 heroes and a 9-card item deck, just like in Constructed, which is also a bit unusual because normally we are used to limited decks being a fraction of Constructed decks. But to be fair, we have more packs and more cards here. In Magic we work with 42 cards, in Artifact we work with 48 cards, in Eternal we work with 48 cards, in Artifact we work with 60 cards. But you have to keep in mind, there is no resources, no power or land that you add to a deck. So in Magic you play 23 out of 42 cards usually. In Eternal you end up with something like 27 out of 48 cards. While in Artifact you end up with up to 54 cards out of 60. Sure, you have basic heroes and basic items to supplement it, but the ratio of like the deck size to a total pool of your picks is much smaller, and you can only replace off color or bad picks with basic cards that are a bit better, which is not the same way as having your default amount of sigils or land that you need anyway. That is not replacing worse cards with this. So the discrepancy between a good and a bad draft I think can be much higher, because having to play more subpar basic cards because you wasted picks in your draft could be much more detrimental than in Magic or Eternal, where you have more picks to waste. Then again, since you can easier play certain cards, especially off-color heroes with their signature card in Artifact, then probably splashing in Magic. It's still a cost, but I would assume it's a bit easier and a little less costly to do, especially for heroes in Artifact. And that's not that big of a deal, but it's a bit mitigated by the fact that your 5 heroes already define 15 cards out of the actually define 20 cards out of the 54, so you only need like 34 regular cards and items to fill out your deck, which is why I assume they structured it that way, since a lot of these 55 cards are already defined by 5 of your picks or basic hero choices. Yeah, definitely interesting and also kind of cool because it makes Limited a bit more similar to Constructed and a bit closer to Constructed than we are used to in Eternal or Magic, for example. So that's pretty interesting. And yeah, it sounds cool. It's nice that there is a real draft format against other players, even if it's asynchronous. The asynchronous part, I think it's just like a trend that makes sense because it's more convenient for the average player, although it makes the draft format a little less deep and competitive and yeah, skill intensive in a way, because there's less signal reading and less potential for hate drafting, and it also changes the power level and so on. Normally you have this contained pool of cards of like 8 people that open their packs, and the pool of cards sort of is a big sealed pool that you sort of yeah, draft in the dark. You don't know what the sealed pool looks like, but there is this fixed sealed pool of 24 packs from this draft, and you're basically trying to end up with the best cards and the best strategy for that 24 card pool, while in these asynchronous non-podded drafts you end up with just like the best cards out of what you see and play against other people that end up with the best cards of what they see, generating a different power level when playing against each other. But yeah, there's already limited tournaments, draft tournaments going on in Artifact in the beta. There's actually one on this Saturday that Joel and Stan talked about in interviews. So this will also be supported as a tournament format, which is great. Especially great news for all the Limited lovers out there. Eternal right now only has tournament support for Constructed. We don't know if it will get Limited tournament support at some point. It might. And yeah, we also don't know if they might at some point do actual draft pods and synchronous regular drafts for tournaments to increase the quality and depth of the format, because there's definitely a different quality to playing within a draft pod rather than just playing against anyone from any amount of packs basically, and so on. So that would actually be pretty cool, and I would like to see them doing regular non-asynchronous drafts for tournaments at some point. That would be pretty cool. Alright, I think we talked long enough about draft. You should have a good idea of how draft is going to work in Artifact. And yeah, now we just have to wait for the NDA to be lifted and the open beta to start. My guess would be sometime next week, but we don't know. They only said in October, but they should be done spoiling all heroes by sometime next week, and maybe that's when they drop the game on us. And yeah, anyway, if you want to stay up to date with all things Eternal, Artifact and so on, and want to catch me stream Eternal and soon Artifact, follow me on Twitch and on my social media. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe to the channel, turn on notification icon to not miss out on future content. And of course, let me know in the comments, what do you guys think about this draft format? How excited are you guys for Artifact and Limited in Artifact, and so on. And of course, I'm always happy to hear constructive feedback on how to improve content in the future, or to hear what kind of content you guys would like to see in the future. So leave a comment, let me know, and thanks for watching, everyone. That's it again for today with my Artifact How to Draft video. I am Manu S. Thank you for watching. See you next time. Bye.